The little girl's trembling voice cut through the silence of the grocery store. "Ma, my daddy didn't come home last night." The stranger who'd been watching her from aisle 3 felt his blood run cold, because this wasn't just any little girl, and he knew exactly where her daddy was. He followed her into the parking lot, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might explode. The child couldn't have been more than 6 years old, clutching her mother's hand with one fist while dragging a stuffed rabbit with the other. Her mother, a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days, was loading grocery bags into an old sedan that had seen better years. The man's hands shook as he approached them. What he was about to say would either save this family or destroy them forever, but he had no choice. Not after what he'd witnessed 12 hours ago on that dark stretch of highway outside town. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice cracking. "I need to talk to you about your husband." The woman spun around, her face a mixture of hope and terror. The little girl looked up at him with enormous brown eyes that reminded him of his own daughter, eyes that were about to learn a truth no child should ever know. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how we got here, to this moment in a grocery store parking lot where everything was about to change, we need to go back. Back to where it all started, just 3 days earlier. Nobody in the town of Riverside ever expected anything exciting to happen. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where the biggest news was usually about whose apple pie won the county fair or which teenager got caught spray painting the water tower. Emma Parker was the kind of mother other mothers envied. At 32, she had it all figured out, or so it seemed. A loving husband named David, who worked as a construction foreman, a beautiful daughter named Lily, who just started first grade, and a cozy house on Maple Street with a white picket fence that she'd painted herself last summer. But 3 days ago, something shifted. David had kissed her goodbye that Tuesday morning, just like he always did. He'd knelt down to hug Lily, promising to take her to get ice cream after school. He'd grabbed his lunchbox, the one with the dented corner from when he'd dropped it off a scaffold 2 years back, and headed out the door at 6:30 sharp. He never came home. At first, Emma wasn't worried. David sometimes worked late when they were trying to finish a project before a deadline. She'd fed Lily dinner, given her a bath, read her 3 bedtime stories instead of the usual 2 because Lily kept asking where Daddy was. "He's working hard to build houses for people who need them," Emma had said, tucking the blanket around her daughter's small frame. "He'll be home soon, sweetheart." But David's phone went straight to voicemail. At 8 o'clock, at 9, at 10. By midnight, Emma was pacing the kitchen floor, her phone clutched in her hand, calling everyone she could think of. David's boss, Rick, sounded confused. "Emma, we wrapped up at 4:30 today. David left with everyone else." Said something about stopping by the hardware store. The hardware store had been closed for hours. Emma called David's best friend, Tom. He hadn't seen him. She called the local hospital. No one matching David's description had been admitted. She even called the police, but they'd given her the same answer they gave every worried spouse. An adult hasn't been missing until they've been gone for 24 hours. Maybe he just needed some space, the officer on the phone had suggested. Sometimes people just need to clear their heads. Emma had wanted to scream. David wasn't that kind of man. He didn't run away from problems. He didn't disappear without a word. In 9 years of marriage, he'd never once failed to call if he was going to be late. That first night was the longest of Emma's life. She sat on the couch, unable to sleep, jumping at every sound outside, praying to hear his truck pulling into the driveway. Dawn came, gray and cold. David's side of the bed was still made. Emma had to be strong for Lily. She made pancakes even though her hands were shaking so badly she burned the first batch. She braided Lily's hair and packed her lunch and walked her to the school bus, all while her mind screamed that something was terribly, horribly wrong. "Mommy, when is Daddy coming home?" Lily asked as they waited at the bus stop. "Soon, baby," Emma lied, her smile feeling like it might crack her face in half. "Very soon." The second day was worse. Emma called in sick to her job at the library and spent 8 hours driving around town, checking every place David might have gone. The hardware store, where the owner remembered seeing him Tuesday afternoon. The coffee shop, where he sometimes stopped for breakfast. The park where he liked to think when he had a problem to solve. Nothing. It was like David had vanished into thin air. By the third day, Emma was running on coffee and fear. The police had finally agreed to file a missing persons report. They'd taken David's photo, asked questions about their marriage, whether David had seemed depressed or stressed. "No," Emma had insisted. "Everything was fine. Everything was good. We were happy." Were they? In the harsh light of the police station, Emma found herself questioning everything. Had David seemed distant lately? Had there been signs she'd missed? No, she refused to believe that. David loved her. David loved Lily. He wouldn't just leave them. That afternoon, with no other options, Emma had taken Lily to the grocery store. They were out of milk and bread, and life had to go on even when your world was falling apart. She'd been moving through the aisles like a ghost, barely seeing what she was putting in the cart. That's when Lily had said it, loud enough for half the store to hear. "Ma, my daddy didn't come home last night." Emma's cheeks had burned with embarrassment and grief. Other shoppers glanced their way with pitying looks. An elderly woman reached out to pat Emma's arm. "I'm sure he'll turn up, dear," she'd said softly. "These things usually work out." But Emma didn't want platitudes. She wanted her husband back. She'd rushed through the checkout, desperate to get Lily home before the tears she'd been holding back finally broke free. Her hands fumbled with her wallet as she paid, barely managing to thank the cashier. The parking lot was nearly empty in the late afternoon sun. Emma popped the trunk and started loading bags, while Lily stood beside her, humming a song David used to sing to her. That's when the man approached. Emma had noticed him in the store, hovering near them in the cereal aisle, then again by the dairy section. She'd thought maybe he was one of those creepy men who stared at women in public places, and she'd made a mental note to keep Lily close. But now, as he walked toward them with his face pale and his hands trembling, Emma realized this was something different, something worse. "Excuse me," he said, and his voice was thick with emotion. "I need to talk to you about your husband." Emma's heart stopped. The grocery bag in her hands dropped to the pavement. A jar of pasta sauce, shattering and splashing red across the concrete like blood. "What?" she whispered. "What about my husband? Do you know where David is?" The man looked down at Lily, then back at Emma. His eyes were filled with such profound sadness that Emma felt her knees go weak. "Not here," he said quietly. "Your daughter shouldn't hear this." "Lily, honey, go sit in the car," Emma said, her voice somehow steady even though everything inside her was screaming. "Lock the doors and don't come out until I tell you to." "But Mommy—" "Now, Lily." Something in Emma's tone made Lily obey without another word. She climbed into the back seat, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her face pressed against the window. Emma turned back to the stranger. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd first thought, maybe 40. With dark hair going gray at the temples and a scar along his jawline. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, work boots caked with dried mud. "Who are you?" Emma demanded. "What do you know about my husband?" The man took a deep breath. "My name is James Mitchell. I'm a truck driver, and 2 nights ago I was driving south on Highway 47, about 20 miles outside of town." Emma's hands clenched into fists. Highway 47 was the route David would have taken if he'd gone to the hardware store across the county line, the one that stayed open later and had better prices. "Go on," she said. "It was raining. James continued. "Not hard, but enough to make the road slick. I came around a bend and I saw—" He paused, swallowing hard. "I saw a truck go off the road. It happened so fast. 1 second it was there. The next it was rolling down the embankment into the trees." Emma couldn't breathe. The parking lot seemed to tilt around her. "I pulled over immediately, called 911, but the embankment was steep and it was dark, and the rain was coming down harder. I tried to climb down to help, but I slipped and twisted my ankle. By the time I got back up to the road, another car had stopped. The driver said he'd wait for the ambulance while I went to the hospital to get my ankle checked." "Was it David?" Emma forced the words out. "Was it my husband's truck?" "I didn't know whose truck it was," James said. "Not until this morning when I finally got up the nerve to call the police station to ask if anyone had been reported missing. They wouldn't give me details, but they mentioned a David Parker. Then they described him. And I remembered seeing the construction company logo on the side of the truck." The world was spinning. Emma grabbed the car to steady herself. "Did they find him?" she asked. Is he alive?" James's expression crumpled. "That's the thing. When the ambulance got there, when they finally made it down to the truck, there was nobody inside." Emma stared at him. "What?" "The truck was empty. No body, no blood. Just an empty truck with the driver's side door hanging open. It was like whoever was driving just disappeared." "That's impossible," Emma said. "People don't just disappear from car accidents. The police think maybe he was thrown from the vehicle and wandered off, confused. They've been searching the woods around the crash site, but it's dense forest. Hundreds of acres. They told me it could take days, maybe weeks to search it all." Emma's mind was racing. If David had been hurt, if he was lost in the woods, he could be suffering right now. He could be dying while she stood here in a parking lot. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" she demanded, anger suddenly burning through her shock. "Why wait 3 days?" James looked ashamed. "I was scared. I've had some trouble with the law in the past. Nothing serious, but enough that I didn't want to get involved. I thought someone else would report it. But when I saw you and your little girl today, when I heard what she said—" He shook his head. "I couldn't stay silent anymore. You deserve to know." Emma wanted to hate him for his cowardice, but she couldn't, because he'd come forward now when it mattered. "Where exactly did this happen?" she asked. "Show me." "Emma, can I call you Emma?" "You can't go out there alone. Let the police handle this." "Those are my husband's woods to search," Emma said fiercely. "And they've had 3 days. I'm not waiting anymore." She pulled out her phone and called Tom, David's best friend. He answered on the first ring. "Tom, I need you to meet me at my house in 10 minutes. And bring anyone you can think of who knows how to search a forest." "Emma? What's going on?" "I found someone who saw David's accident. He's alive, Tom. He has to be alive. We're going to bring him home." She hung up before he could ask more questions and turned back to James. "You're coming with me," she said. "You're going to show us exactly where this happened." James nodded. "I'll do whatever I can to help." Emma opened the car door and leaned in to check on Lily. Her daughter's face was streaked with tears. "Mommy, is that man going to help us find Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart," Emma said, pulling Lily into a fierce hug. "We're going to find him. I promise you, we're going to bring Daddy home." It was a promise she had no idea if she could keep. Within an hour, Emma's living room was full of people. Tom had brought 5 other guys from David's construction crew. The elderly woman from the grocery store had somehow heard what was happening and showed up with thermoses of coffee and sandwiches. Even Officer Patterson, the policeman Emma had spoken to earlier, was there, looking uncomfortable but determined to help. James spread a map across Emma's dining room table and pointed to a spot on Highway 47. "Here," he said, "right after the big curve, before you get to Miller's farm." "I know that area," Tom said. "Dense pine forest on both sides. if David wandered in there, hurt and confused. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. They organized into teams. Officer Patterson called for backup, getting 3 more officers and a search and rescue team on the way. They'd start at first light, but Emma couldn't wait that long. "I'm going now," she announced. "Anyone who wants to come with me is welcome, but I'm not waiting." "Emma, it's almost dark," Tom protested. "We can't search effectively in the dark." "My husband has been out there for 3 days," Emma said, her voice breaking. 3 days, Tom. If he's hurt, if he's trapped somewhere, every hour matters." She looked around the room at all these people who'd come to help, these neighbors and friends, and even strangers who'd heard about a missing man and wanted to do something good. "Please," she said simply. That one word was enough. They grabbed flashlights and first aid kits. Emma left Lily with her next-door neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a grandmother who'd raised 6 kids of her own and wouldn't take no for an answer when Emma tried to protest. "You go find your man," Mrs. Henderson said firmly. "I'll keep this little one safe and sound." The convoy of cars heading out to Highway 47 looked like a funeral procession, all those headlights cutting through the gathering dusk. Emma rode with Tom and James, her hands clenched so tight in her lap that her nails drew blood from her palms. When they reached the spot James had indicated, Emma's heart sank. The embankment was even steeper than she'd imagined, dropping at least 30 feet down into thick forest. Yellow police tape marked where David's truck had finally come to rest, wrapped around a massive oak tree. The truck was still there, battered and broken. Emma recognized it immediately, even though the front end was completely crushed. David had bought that truck the year they got married. He'd been so proud of it. Now it was a twisted metal corpse. "David!" Emma screamed into the darkness. "David, can you hear me? It's Emma! We're here to bring you home!" Her voice echoed through the trees, but there was no answer. The search team spread out with their flashlights, calling David's name. Officer Patterson tried to convince Emma to wait at the road, but she ignored him and started down the embankment, half sliding in the loose dirt and pine needles. She had to see the truck, had to understand what had happened. Tom caught up with her at the bottom, steadying her when she stumbled. Together they approached the wreck. The driver's side door was indeed hanging open, just as James had said. The windshield was shattered, glass glittering across the hood like diamonds, and there, on the driver's seat, was David's lunchbox, the one with the dented corner. Emma picked it up with shaking hands and opened it. Inside was the sandwich she'd made him that morning. Untouched. He'd never even eaten his lunch. "Emma, look at this," Tom said quietly. He was pointing at the ground near the door. Even in the flashlight beam, Emma could see it. A trail of disturbed leaves and broken twigs leading away from the truck, heading deeper into the forest. Footprints. David's footprints. "He walked away," Emma breathed. "He was conscious enough to walk." That meant he was alive. Hurt, maybe badly, but alive. They followed the trail as far as they could, but after about 20 yards it disappeared into the underbrush. The search teams converged on the area, spreading out in a grid pattern, their flashlight beams crisscrossing like searchlights. Hours passed. Emma's voice grew hoarse from calling David's name. Her clothes were torn from pushing through brambles, her hands scratched and bleeding. But she wouldn't stop. Couldn't stop. It was nearly midnight when they heard it, a sound that didn't belong in the forest, a faint, rhythmic beeping, like an alarm or a phone notification. "Everyone quiet," Officer Patterson commanded. The search teams fell silent, listening. There it was again. Beep, beep, beep. "It's coming from the east," Tom said, pointing. "Maybe 100 yards that way." They crashed through the undergrowth toward the sound. Emma's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst. This was it. This had to be it. The beeping grew louder as they pushed through a thick stand of mountain laurel, and then suddenly, they were in a small clearing, and there, Emma's scream cut through the night, because lying in the center of the clearing, illuminated by a dozen flashlight beams, was not her husband. It was a phone. David's phone. The case cracked, but the screen still lit up with low battery warnings. But David wasn't there. And neither was the person whose footprints led away from the phone, heading in a completely different direction. Footprints that were much smaller than David's. Footprints that might have belonged to a woman. The smaller footprints changed everything. Officer Patterson knelt beside David's phone, careful not to touch it. "Nobody move," he said sharply. "This is a crime scene now." Crime scene. The words hit Emma like a slap. This wasn't just a search and rescue anymore. Something else had happened out here in these woods, something that made her stomach twist with a fear she'd never known before. "What do you mean, crime scene?" she demanded. "Those footprints could be anyone's. A hiker, someone who found the phone and dropped it." "Emma." Tom's voice was gentle but firm. He pointed at the ground near the phone. "Look." In the beam of his flashlight, Emma saw what had made Patterson's face go hard. The smaller footprints didn't just pass by the phone. They circled it, paced back and forth like someone had been standing there for a while. And pressed into the soft earth beside them were two other marks, the unmistakable impression of knees, as if someone had knelt down. Right next to those knee impressions was a dark stain in the dirt. "Is that blood?" Emma whispered. Patterson pulled out an evidence bag and a small kit from his belt. He swabbed the stain carefully, then held up the cotton swab. Even in the flashlight beam, they could all see the rusty red color. Emma's legs gave out. Tom caught her before she hit the ground, holding her up as her whole world shattered into pieces. "No," she said. "No, no, no. David's not dead. He can't be dead. We found his footprints. He walked away from the accident." "We don't know whose blood this is," Patterson said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It could be from an animal. Could be from your husband if he was injured." "We won't know anything until we get it tested." But Emma could read between the lines. She'd watched enough crime shows to know what the police were thinking. Husband crashes his truck, walks away from the accident, possibly injured and disoriented. Someone finds him out here in the woods. And then she couldn't finish the thought. "We need to follow those other footprints," James said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. He'd been quiet since they entered the forest, staying on the edges of the group like he didn't quite belong. Whoever was here, they went that way. He pointed to where the smaller prints led away from the clearing, heading north. "Mr. Mitchell is right," Patterson said. He pulled out his radio. "I'm calling for more units. This is bigger than we thought." Within 20 minutes, the forest was alive with activity. More police officers arrived, along with 2 detectives who took over the scene. They photographed everything, bagged David's phone as evidence, marked the footprints with little yellow flags that looked obscene in their cheerfulness. Emma stood to the side, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, watching it all happen like she was outside her own body. This couldn't be real. Yesterday morning, she'd been worried about whether Lily's teacher would notice she'd forgotten to sign the permission slip. Now she was standing in a forest at 1 in the morning while detectives talked about blood evidence and tracking dogs. "Mrs. Parker?" One of the detectives approached her. He was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes that had seen too much. "I'm Detective Reeves. I need to ask you some questions." "I already told Officer Patterson everything I know," Emma said dully. "I understand, but I need you to walk me through your husband's last day one more time. Sometimes small details matter." So Emma repeated it all again. David kissing her goodbye, going to work, leaving at 4:30, stopping at the hardware store. She'd told this story so many times in the past 3 days that the words felt like they belonged to someone else. "Did your husband have any enemies?" Reeves asked. "Anyone who might want to hurt him?" "No. Everyone loved David. He was the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off his back." Any money troubles? Gambling debts? No, we're not rich, but we're comfortable. David's good with money. What about other women? Any chance he was seeing someone? Emma's hands clenched into fists. My husband would never cheat on me, never. Reeves held up his hands in surrender. I had to ask. I'm sorry. But the question planted a seed of doubt that Emma hated herself for even considering. The smaller footprints belonged to a woman. What if David had been meeting someone out here? What if the accident had been on his way to some secret rendezvous? No, she refused to believe it. 9 years of marriage, 9 years of loyalty and love and partnership. She knew David. She knew his heart, didn't she? We're going to find him, Reeves said. We've got tracking dogs coming at first light. If your husband is out here, we'll bring him home. If. Such a small word to carry so much horror. Tom drove Emma back to her house at 3 in the morning. She was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open, but she knew sleep wouldn't come. How could she sleep when David was out there somewhere hurt or worse? Mrs. Henderson met her at the door, her face creased with worry. Any news? Emma shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. Lily's asleep in her room, Mrs. Henderson said softly. That sweet baby cried herself to sleep asking for her daddy. The words broke something in Emma. She collapsed into Mrs. Henderson's arms and sobbed, all the fear and terror she'd been holding back finally pouring out. He's gone, she wept. Something terrible happened to him, and he's gone, and I don't know what to tell our daughter. Hush now, Mrs. Henderson soothed, stroking Emma's hair like she was a child. You don't know that. You keep faith. Miracles happen every day. But Emma had stopped believing in miracles. She must have slept eventually, because the next thing she knew, pale morning light was streaming through her bedroom window and someone was knocking on her door. Emma stumbled downstairs, still in yesterday's clothes, her hair a tangled mess. Through the front door's window, she could see Detective Reeves standing on her porch. Her heart stopped. Police at your door first thing in the morning was never good news. She opened the door with shaking hands. Did you find him? Not yet, Reeves said, but we found something else. Can I come in? They sat at Emma's kitchen table, the same table where she and David had eaten breakfast together 4 mornings ago. Reeves pulled out a tablet and turned it to face her. We've been going through your husband's phone records, he said, and we found something interesting. The screen showed a list of calls and texts. Reeves pointed to a number that appeared multiple times over the past 2 weeks, always late at night. Do you recognize this number? He asked. Emma squinted at it. No, who is it? We're still tracking that down. The number belongs to a prepaid cell phone purchased with cash. Hard to trace. But your husband was calling this number almost every night for the past 2 weeks. The calls lasted anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour. Emma felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. That doesn't mean anything. It could be work-related, maybe a client or a supplier. At 11 o'clock at night? Reeves raised an eyebrow. And there are texts, too. Your husband deleted them, but we can recover deleted messages. Give us a day or two. You think he was having an affair. It wasn't a question. I think your husband was communicating with someone he didn't want you to know about. Whether that's an affair or something else, we need to find out. Emma's mind was reeling. She thought back over the past 2 weeks, trying to remember if David had seemed different. Had he been distant, secretive? There had been that one night, maybe 10 days ago, when she'd woken up at midnight and found David's side of the bed empty. She'd gotten up to check on him and found him in the garage, sitting in his truck with his phone pressed to his ear. When he'd seen her, he'd ended the call quickly and said it was just Rick from work with a question about the next day's job. She'd believed him. Why wouldn't she? Mrs. Parker, I need you to think carefully, Reeves said. In the weeks before your husband disappeared, Did he mention anyone new in his life? A friend? A coworker? Anyone at all? Emma started to say no, then stopped. There had been someone. At the company barbecue 3 weeks ago, David had introduced her to a new employee. What was her name? Ashley? No, Amber. Amber something. There's a woman who just started working at David's company, Emma said slowly. Amber. I don't know her last name. She's young, maybe 25. David mentioned she was doing administrative work in the office. Reeves wrote this down. Did your husband seem close to her? I only met her once for maybe 5 minutes. She seemed nice enough. Quiet. But even as Emma said it, she was remembering the way Amber had looked at David at that barbecue. The way she'd laughed a little too hard at his jokes. The way her hand had lingered on his arm when she'd thanked him for helping her learn the company's computer system. Emma had noticed it at the time but pushed it away. David got along with everyone. He was friendly and helpful. It didn't mean anything, did it? I'll need her full name and contact information, Reeves said. Can you call David's boss and get that for me? Emma nodded numbly. She called Rick while Reeves waited, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Emma, hey, Rick answered, his voice rough with exhaustion. Any news? Not yet. Rick, I need to ask you about someone who works for you. Amber something. She started a few weeks ago? There was a pause. Amber Hartley. Yeah, she's our new office assistant. Why? The police need her information. Another pause, longer this time. Emma. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but Amber called in sick the day after David disappeared. Said she had the flu. She hasn't been back to work since. Emma's blood ran cold. What? I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now with you asking... Rick sounded worried. You don't think she had something to do with David going missing, do you? I don't know, Emma said. I don't know anything anymore. She gave Reeves the information, and he immediately made a call, stepping outside to talk. Emma sat at her kitchen table, staring at nothing, her world crumbling around her. Was it possible? Had David been having an affair with this young woman? Had they planned to run away together? Had the accident ruined their plans? Or had something worse happened? Reeves came back inside, his face grim. Amber Hartley isn't at her apartment. Neighbors say they haven't seen her in days. Her car's gone, too. So she ran, Emma said flatly. Or she's in danger herself, Reeves countered. We don't know enough yet to jump to conclusions. But Emma was already jumping. Her mind was spinning out worst-case scenarios faster than she could process them. David and Amber running away together. David and Amber fighting. David and Amber. A sound from upstairs interrupted her spiral. Lily calling for her. Mommy, is Daddy home yet? Emma closed her eyes, gathering every ounce of strength she had left. I'll be right up, sweetheart. She looked at Reeves. I need to be alone with my daughter now. He nodded, standing. I'll call you the moment we know anything. And Mrs. Parker, try not to assume the worst. We still have a lot of investigating to do. After he left, Emma climbed the stairs to Lily's room. Her daughter was sitting up in bed, holding her stuffed rabbit, her face hopeful. Is Daddy downstairs? Lily asked. Emma sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Lily into her arms. Not yet, baby. But a lot of people are looking for him. Why did he leave us, Mommy? The question pierced Emma's heart. He didn't leave us, sweetheart. He had an accident and he's lost. But we're going to find him. Promise? Emma couldn't make that promise. Not anymore. But looking into her daughter's trusting eyes, she couldn't tell her the truth either. I promise I'll do everything I can, she said instead. It was the best she could offer. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Emma's phone rang constantly, friends calling to offer support. The police calling with updates that weren't really updates. The local news had gotten hold of the story, and a reporter showed up at her door asking for a statement. Tom came by in the afternoon with food that Emma couldn't eat. He sat with her in the living room while Lily watched cartoons, neither of them talking much. "Do you think he was cheating on me?" Emma asked finally. Tom was quiet for a long moment. "I think David loved you more than anything in this world. Whatever happened, whatever the police find out, that's the one thing I know for absolute certain." It should have been comforting. But all Emma could think about was those mysterious phone calls, that missing woman, those footprints in the forest. As the sun set on the 4th day since David disappeared, Emma stood at her bedroom window looking out at the street. Somewhere out there was the truth. Somewhere out there was her husband, or what was left of him. And somewhere out there was Amber Hartley, who held the answers to questions Emma was terrified to ask. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Emma almost didn't open it. She got spam texts all the time, but something made her thumb hover over the notification and tap it. The message made her drop the phone. It was a photo. Grainy, taken at night, but clear enough to see what it showed. David, standing in what looked like a motel parking lot. And next to him, her hand on his arm, looking up at him with an expression that made Emma's chest constrict with pain, was a young woman with blonde hair. The message below the photo was just 3 words. "He's still alive." Emma's hands trembled as she picked up the phone from where it had fallen onto her bed. She stared at the photo, zooming in, desperately trying to see every detail. It was definitely David. She'd know her husband anywhere. Same brown jacket he'd been wearing the day he disappeared. Same work boots. Same way he stood with his weight shifted to his left leg because his right knee sometimes bothered him. And the woman had to be Amber Hartley. Young, blonde, pretty in a girl-next-door kind of way. In the photo, she was looking up at David with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. Worry? Fear? Something else? But the message said he was still alive. That meant this photo was recent, after the accident, after 3 days of searching. Emma's relief lasted exactly 2 seconds before fury took over. If David was alive, why hadn't he called? Why hadn't he come home? Why was he standing in some motel parking lot with another woman while Emma and Lily fell apart with grief? She tried calling the number that sent the photo. It rang once, then went to a generic voicemail. She tried texting back. "Who is this? Where was this taken? When?" No response. Emma ran downstairs where Tom was still sitting on the couch. She thrust the phone at him. "Look at this! Someone just sent me this!" Tom's eyes widened as he looked at the photo. "Is that David?" "Yes. And I think that's Amber Hartley, the woman from his work." Emma was pacing now, her mind racing. "Someone sent this to me saying he's still alive. But who? And why?" "We need to call Detective Reeves right now," Tom said, already pulling out his own phone. Reeves arrived within 20 minutes, bringing another detective with him. They examined Emma's phone, asked her questions about the unknown number, took screenshots of everything. "Can you trace where this came from?" Emma demanded. "We'll try, but if they use the right apps, it could be impossible to track," Reeves said. "What I'm more interested in is who sent it and why. Someone wants you to know your husband is alive." "Maybe someone who wants to help," Tom suggested. "Or someone who wants to torment Mrs. Parker," the other detective said. Her name was Cooper. Detective Cooper. She was younger than Reeves, sharp-eyed and skeptical. "Could be someone playing a cruel prank." "That's my husband," Emma said fiercely. "I know David. That photo is real." "When was it taken, though?" Cooper asked. "There's no timestamp. This could be from weeks ago." Emma looked at the photo again more carefully. In the background, barely visible, was a newspaper vending machine. She zoomed in as far as she could. The headline was too blurry to read completely, but she could make out enough. "Storm hits coastal." There was a big storm on the coast 3 days ago, Tom said, looking over her shoulder. I remember hearing about it on the news. That means this photo was taken recently, right around when David disappeared. Reeves and Cooper exchanged glances. We need to figure out where this motel is, Reeves said. Mrs. Parker, look at the background. Anything distinctive? Anything you recognize? Emma studied every pixel. The motel itself was generic, the kind of cheap roadside place with rooms that opened directly to the parking lot. But there was a sign partially visible on the left side of the frame. She could only see part of it. Pine Rest Inn. Pine Rest Inn, she said. Does that mean anything? Cooper was already typing on her phone. There's a Pinecrest Inn about 40 miles west of here. Could that be it? It's worth checking out, Reeves said. He looked at Emma. You should stay here. Let us handle this. Absolutely not, Emma said. If my husband is at that motel, I'm going to be there when you find him. She could see Reeves wanted to argue, but something in her expression must have convinced him it would be pointless. Fine, but you stay in the car until we clear the scene. Understood? Emma nodded, though she had no intention of following that instruction if it came down to it. They left Lily with Mrs. Henderson again. Emma hated leaving her daughter, but she couldn't take a 6-year-old on what might turn into a confrontation. What if David really was there? What if he was with Amber? What would Emma even say? The drive to Pinecrest Inn took 45 minutes. Emma sat in the back of Reeves's car, her knee bouncing with nervous energy. Tom had wanted to come, but the detectives had said no. Only Emma. The motel was exactly as generic as it had looked in the photo. 1 story, maybe 20 rooms, a flickering neon sign that said vacancy, even though half the letters were burned out. The parking lot was mostly empty except for a few cars that looked like they'd been there for days. Reeves parked at the office. Wait here, he told Emma. She watched as he and Cooper went inside to talk to whoever was working the desk. Through the window, she could see an old man nodding, pointing toward the far end of the motel. Her heart was pounding so hard she felt dizzy. Was David really here? After 4 days of terror and searching and grief, was he just going to be in some cheap motel room? Reeves came back to the car. Manager says a man and woman matching their descriptions checked in 3 days ago. Room 18, at the far end. Paid cash for a week. 3 days ago. The day after the accident. He's here, Emma breathed. David's really here. We don't know that for certain until we check, Cooper cautioned. Stay in the car, Mrs. Parker, we mean it. They walked toward room 18, hands near their weapons. Emma watched them knock on the door. No answer. Knock again, harder. Police! Open up! Still nothing. Reeves gestured to the manager who'd followed them with a key. He unlocked the door and pushed it open. Even from the car, Emma could hear Cooper's sharp intake of breath. That was it. Emma was out of the car and running before she could think about it. She pushed past the manager, past Reeves trying to grab her arm, and into the room. It was empty, but it had definitely been occupied recently. The bed was unmade, clothes scattered across the floor. Men's clothes. David's clothes. She recognized his favorite plaid shirt, the one she'd washed 100 times. Mrs. Parker, you need to leave, Reeves said firmly. But Emma was staring at the bathroom door, which was slightly ajar. There was something on the floor just inside, something dark. Cooper saw it too. She pushed the bathroom door fully open and swore under her breath. It was blood. A lot of it. Smeared across the white tile floor, spattered on the wall beside the sink. Emma's knees buckled. Reeves caught her this time, holding her up. Get her out of here, Cooper ordered. This is a crime scene. No, Emma gasped. No, I need to know. Is it David's blood? Is he... We don't know anything yet, Reeves said, but his voice was grim. Come on, let's get you outside. He practically carried her back to the car. Emma collapsed in the back seat, her mind refusing to process what she'd just seen. There had been so much blood, too much blood for someone to survive losing. But the text had said David was alive. The photo showed him standing, walking, talking. How could both things be true? Cooper came out of the room holding evidence bags. Emma could see she'd collected the bloody towels from the bathroom, was photographing everything. More police cars arrived. The motel was quickly becoming a circus of flashing lights and yellow crime scene tape. The few other guests who'd been staying there were being questioned, though most of them looked too drunk or high to have noticed anything. Reeves came back to check on Emma after about an hour. "We found something," he said quietly. "In the trash can. A first aid kit, mostly used up. Bandages, antiseptic, the works." "So someone was hurt," Emma said. "But they treated the wound themselves." "Looks that way. Which means whoever was bleeding probably survived, at least long enough to patch themselves up." "What about David? What about Amber? Where are they now?" "The manager says he saw them leave this morning, maybe 6 hours ago. The man was walking, seemed okay. The woman was driving. Walking. Not being carried, not bleeding out. Walking." "So he's alive," Emma said. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or betrayed. "He's alive, and he's with her, and he's been here this whole time while I've been losing my mind." "We don't know the full story yet," Reeves cautioned. "Then tell me what you do know," Emma demanded. "Stop protecting me from the truth. What do you think happened here?" Reeves sighed. He looked tired, like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. "Honestly, I think your husband and Amber Hartley were meeting here. I think they might have been having an affair. The accident complicated things, but they were already planning something. That's why he was calling her late at night, why she disappeared the same time he did. But the blood. Maybe he was hurt worse than he let on. Maybe they fought. I don't know. But the evidence suggests they were here together. By choice, and they left together. That tells me your husband isn't in danger. He's just gone." The words were a knife to Emma's heart. "You think he left me? Left his daughter? Ran away with some young woman he barely knows?" "I think we need to find them and ask them directly," Reeves said. "But yes, that's what the evidence is suggesting." Emma wanted to scream, wanted to cry, wanted to punch something, but mostly she just felt numb. "The car," she said suddenly. "You said Amber was driving. What kind of car?" Cooper overheard and came over. "Manager says it was a silver Honda Civic. We've got an APB out on it now." A silver Honda Civic. Emma had seen one of those in David's company parking lot at the barbecue, had watched Amber unlock it and load a box of leftover food into the trunk while David helped her carry things. How long had they been planning this? Weeks? Months? Had Emma been completely blind to what was happening in her own marriage? "I want to go home," she said quietly. "I need to be with my daughter." Reeves drove her back in silence. What was there to say? The search for a missing man had turned into something uglier. A husband who'd abandoned his family. A wife who'd been replaced by someone younger and prettier. Except Emma still couldn't make it make sense. This wasn't David. He wasn't the kind of man who ran away from his responsibilities. He adored Lily. He'd never miss her school play or her soccer games or the way she insisted on pancakes every Saturday morning. He wouldn't leave them. He wouldn't. Would he? Mrs. Henderson met Emma at the door, her face full of questions, but Emma just shook her head. She couldn't talk about it. Not yet. Lily was asleep on the couch, still in her clothes, her face blotchy from crying. Emma picked her up carefully, carried her upstairs, and tucked her into bed. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." Downstairs, Emma's phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Her heart racing, she opened it. This time, it wasn't a photo. It was a message. You're looking in the wrong place. David isn't running from you. He's running from something else. Check his truck, under the driver's seat. You'll understand. Emma stared at the message. David's truck was still down that embankment, wrapped around a tree, part of an active investigation. She texted back, "Who are you? How do you know this?" The response came immediately. "Someone who knows what it's like to be hunted. Get to the truck before they do. Tonight. This is your last chance to save him." Before Emma could respond, another message appeared. "And Emma, the blood in that motel room wasn't David's. It belonged to the man who's trying to kill him." Emma's phone slipped from her hands and clattered onto the kitchen floor. She stared at it like it might explode, her mind struggling to process what she'd just read. The blood wasn't David's. Someone was trying to kill him. He wasn't running away from her. He was running for his life. Everything shifted. The affair, the mysterious phone calls, the motel room. None of it was what she'd thought. David wasn't abandoning his family. He was protecting them. She snatched up her phone and called Tom. He answered on the first ring. "Emma, what's wrong?" "I need you to come over right now and bring a flashlight, a good one." "What's going on?" "I'll explain when you get here, just hurry." Tom arrived 15 minutes later. Emma met him at the door, already wearing her jacket and boots. "We need to get to David's truck," she said. "Tonight. Now." "Emma, that's a crime scene. We can't just—" She showed him the messages, watched his face change as he read them. "Who sent these?" he asked. "I don't know, but they knew about the motel before the police did. They know things nobody else knows." "Tom, what if David's in real danger? What if we've been looking at this all wrong?" Tom ran a hand through his hair. "Even if that's true, we can't just go trampling through a police investigation. If there's evidence in that truck, we need to let the cops find it. The message said to get there before they do. Before who? The police? Or whoever's trying to kill David?" Emma grabbed Tom's arm. "Please, I know I'm asking you to break rules, but this is David, your best friend, my husband, father of my child. If there's even a chance these messages are real, we have to check." Tom looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. "Mrs. Henderson can stay with Lily?" "Already asked her. She'll sleep in the guest room." "Then let's go. But Emma, if we find something, we call Reeves immediately. Deal?" Deal. The drive to Highway 47 felt endless. Emma's mind kept spinning through possibilities. Who was trying to kill David? Why? And who was sending her these messages? Someone who cared about David, or someone playing a sick game? They reached the crash site just after 11. The police tape was still up, fluttering in the night breeze. Tom parked on the shoulder and they grabbed flashlights from his truck. "Stay close," he said. "That embankment is treacherous in the dark." They made their way down carefully, using trees for handholds. Emma's boots slipped on loose pine needles. But she caught herself. The wreckage of David's truck loomed in their flashlight beams, looking even more destroyed than she remembered. The driver's side door was still hanging open. Emma approached it slowly, her heart pounding. Tom stood beside her, his flashlight illuminating the interior. "Under the driver's seat," Emma murmured. She knelt in the dirt and aimed her light underneath. At first she saw nothing but fast food wrappers and old receipts. Then her beam caught something wedged against the seat frame, a manila envelope taped to the metal. Emma's hands shook as she peeled away the tape and pulled it free. The envelope was sealed, bulging with something inside. "Open it," Tom urged. Emma tore it open. Inside was a USB drive, a stack of photographs, and a handwritten note. She recognized David's messy scrawl immediately. The note read, "Em, if you're reading this, something went wrong. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. I was trying to protect you and Lily. The USB has everything, proof of what Rick's been doing. The photos show the payoffs. I was going to the police the day I crashed. Someone found out. They've been following me. If anything happens to me, give this to Detective Sarah Morrison at State Police, not local cops. Some of them are involved. I love you, always. Protect our daughter. D. Emma's hands trembled so badly she almost dropped the note. Tom took it from her and read it, his face going pale. "Rick," he said. "David's boss, Rick. What's he been doing?" Emma spread out the photographs on the hood of the wrecked truck. Her stomach turned as she looked at them. Photos of Rick meeting with men in expensive suits, briefcases changing hands. Photos of construction sites with substandard materials being used. Photos of inspection reports with forged signatures. "He's been taking bribes," Emma breathed. "Cutting corners on construction projects, using cheap materials, falsifying safety inspections. David must have found out." Tom picked up one of the photos. "That building in the background. That's the new elementary school across town. The one that just opened last month." Emma felt sick. How many people were in danger because Rick had chosen profit over safety? How many buildings had David's company constructed with substandard materials? "David was going to expose him," she said. "That's why Rick tried to kill him, or had someone else do it." "We need to call the police right now," Tom said. "Reeves, or better yet, this Detective Morrison David mentioned." But Emma was thinking about something else. The phone calls, the late-night conversations. David wasn't calling a girlfriend. He was calling someone about this, maybe a lawyer or an investigator or... Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. "Good. You found it. Now you know the truth. But Emma, you're in danger now too. Rick has people watching your house. Get Lily and leave. Tonight. Don't go home. Don't trust local police. Call Detective Morrison. She's expecting to hear from you." Emma showed the message to Tom, her blood running cold. "They're watching my house. Lily's there." "Mrs. Henderson's with her," Tom said, but he looked worried too. "We need to..." A sound cut through the night. Footsteps crunching through undergrowth. Someone was coming down the embankment. Tom killed his flashlight immediately. Emma did the same. They crouched behind the truck, barely breathing. Two figures emerged into the small clearing. Men, both carrying flashlights and something else. Guns. "Boss said to make sure there's nothing left in the truck," one of them said. "Parker was supposed to have evidence. We need to find it before the cops do their thorough search tomorrow." "We should have just finished him off at the motel," the other grumbled. "Now he's in the wind with that girl and the evidence." Emma's heart was racing so fast she thought she might pass out. These were Rick's men. The ones who'd run David off the road. The ones who'd tracked him to the motel and tried to kill him there. Tom's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezing tight. They needed to stay quiet, stay hidden, pray these men didn't find them. The first man yanked open the passenger door and started rummaging through the glove compartment. "Nothing here. Check under the seats." Emma clutched the envelope to her chest. They were too late. She had the evidence. But if these men found her and Tom, they were both dead. Tom was slowly pulling out his phone, probably trying to call for help. But the movement caught the second man's attention. "Did you hear that?" He swung his flashlight around. The beam swept right over their hiding spot. "There! Behind the truck!" Everything happened at once. The men rushed forward. Tom jumped up, shouting for Emma to run. She scrambled up the embankment, her boots slipping on loose dirt, the envelope still clutched in her hands. Behind her, she heard Tom grunt in pain. She looked back to see him grappling with one of the men while the other raised his gun. "Tom!" she screamed. The gunshot was deafeningly loud in the quiet forest. Tom fell. Emma's scream died in her throat. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Tom was lying on the ground and there was blood, and this couldn't be happening. Not again, not... "Get her!" one of the men shouted. Survival instinct kicked in. Emma ran. She crashed through the forest, branches tearing at her face and clothes. Behind her, she could hear them crashing through the undergrowth, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. She had to get to the road. had to get help, had to save Lily. Her foot caught on a root, and she went down hard, the envelope flying from her hands. She scrambled for it in the dark, her fingers closing around it just as a flashlight beam found her. "Don't move," a voice said. Emma looked up to see one of the men standing over her, his gun pointed directly at her face. "Give me the envelope, Mrs. Parker. Make this easy on yourself." Emma's mind raced. If she gave him the evidence, David's sacrifice was for nothing. Tom's sacrifice. But if she didn't, she'd never see Lily again. "Okay," she said, her voice shaking. "Okay, you can have it. Just let me go. I have a daughter." She held out the envelope. The man reached for it, and Emma threw it as hard as she could into the darkness in the opposite direction. "What the—" The man's flashlight swung toward where it had landed. Emma ran. She made it maybe 10 feet before something slammed into her from behind, driving her to the ground. The man's weight crushed the air from her lungs. "Stupid move," he growled in her ear. Emma struggled, but he was too strong. He flipped her over, his hand closing around her throat. This was it. She was going to die in these woods, and Lily would be alone, and David would never know what happened, and— A gunshot cracked through the air. The man on top of Emma jerked, then slumped to the side. She scrambled away from him, gasping for air. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a woman, young, blonde, holding a gun with surprisingly steady hands. Amber Hartley. "Are you okay?" Amber asked, rushing over to help Emma to her feet. Emma could only stare at her in shock. You shot him. He was going to kill you." Amber's voice was calm, but her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "We need to get out of here. The other one will have heard that shot." "Tom," Emma gasped. "My friend, they shot him. We have to—" "I already called 911 and Detective Morrison on my way here," Amber said. "Help is coming, but we need to move. Now." She grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her toward the road. Emma snatched up the envelope from where it had landed and let Amber lead her through the forest. They reached the road just as sirens filled the air. Police cars were screaming toward them, along with an ambulance. Emma collapsed on the shoulder, her whole body shaking. Amber knelt beside her, still holding the gun loosely in one hand. "Where's David?" Emma managed to ask. "Is he safe?" "He's safe. He's with Detective Morrison. We've been working with her for 3 weeks, gathering evidence against Rick and his organization." Amber looked at Emma with something like sympathy. "I'm sorry you had to go through all this. David wanted to tell you everything, but Morrison said it was safer if you didn't know. If Rick thought you knew anything, he would have gone after you and Lily." "The affair," Emma said numbly. "Everyone thought—" "I know. That was the point. Better for people to think David was cheating than to realize he was about to blow the whistle on a massive corruption scheme." Amber helped Emma to her feet as the police cars screeched to a halt beside them. "We staged the motel scene, made it look like we were running away together, bought us time to get David somewhere safe while we figured out our next move." Detective Morrison emerged from one of the cars. She was a tall woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and an air of authority. "Mrs. Parker, I'm Detective Morrison. Are you hurt?" "My friend Tom," Emma said, her voice breaking. "They shot him. He's down there by the truck. I don't know if he's—" Morrison was already directing officers down the embankment. The ambulance followed, paramedics grabbing their equipment. Emma sank to the ground, everything catching up with her at once. The terror, the confusion, the relief, the grief. She'd thought David had betrayed her, but he'd been trying to save her. "Where is he?" she asked Morrison. "Where's my husband?" Morrison pulled out her phone and made a call. "She's here. She's safe. Yes, she has it." She handed the phone to Emma. "Em?" David's voice cracked over the line, thick with emotion. "Oh God, Em, are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Emma started crying. She couldn't help it. 4 days of hell, and finally, she was hearing his voice. "I'm okay," she sobbed. "David, I thought you were dead. I thought you'd left us." "Never. I would never leave you and Lily." "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you. I love you so much. When can you come home?" There was a pause. "Morrison says probably tomorrow once they've arrested everyone involved. Rick and at least 6 others are going down tonight. It's over, Em. It's finally over." Emma wiped her eyes, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Lily misses you. She's been asking for you every day." "I miss her too. I miss both of you more than I can say." David's voice broke. "How is she? Is she okay?" "She's scared and confused, but she's safe. Mrs. Henderson's with her." Emma took a shaky breath. "David, Tom was shot." "He was helping me and they shot him." "I know. Morrison just told me. Paramedics are with him now." Emma looked toward the embankment where officers were emerging, carefully carrying a stretcher. Tom was on it, pale but conscious, an oxygen mask over his face. He saw Emma and raised a weak hand. Relief flooded through her. "He's alive. Tom's alive." "Thank God," David breathed. "Em, I have to go. Morrison needs the phone back, but I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I'll come home and we'll be a family again." "I love you," Emma whispered. "I love you too. Always." Morrison took the phone back. Emma stood on shaky legs and watched as the paramedics loaded Tom into the ambulance. He'd been shot in the shoulder, one of them told her. Painful, but he'd survive. More officers were bringing up the man Amber had shot. He was alive too, handcuffed and cursing. The second man had been caught trying to flee through the woods. Emma turned to Amber, who was giving her statement to another detective. "Thank you," Emma said when there was a pause. "You saved my life." Amber looked uncomfortable with the gratitude. "I was just doing what needed to be done. Your husband's a good man, Mrs. Parker. He risked everything to expose Rick's corruption. A lot of people are going to be safer because of what he did." "Why did you help him?" "Because my brother died in one of Rick's buildings," Amber said quietly. 3 years ago, a warehouse fire. The exits were blocked. The sprinkler system didn't work because Rick had used cheap materials and bribed the inspector to pass it anyway. My brother and 4 other people burned to death." Emma felt her heart break for this young woman. "I'm so sorry. When I got hired at David's company, I was looking for evidence. I wanted to prove what Rick had done. David figured out what I was doing, and instead of turning me in, he showed me everything he'd already collected. We've been working together ever since." The first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon as Morrison finally let Emma go home. She rode in a police car, still clutching the envelope that had almost cost her life. Mrs. Henderson met her at the door, her eyes red from crying. "Lily saw the police cars," she said. "I told her you were fine, but she's been beside herself." Emma ran upstairs to find her daughter sitting on her bed, tears streaming down her face. "Mommy!" Lily launched herself into Emma's arms. "Where were you? I was so scared." "I'm here, baby. I'm okay." "Everything's okay now." "Is Daddy coming home?" Emma pulled back to look into her daughter's eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. Daddy's coming home tomorrow. He's safe and he loves you very much, and he's been working very hard to keep us all safe." "He didn't leave us?" "No, baby. He would never leave us. Never." Lily buried her face in Emma's shoulder and cried. Emma held her daughter and rocked her and whispered that everything was going to be all right. Because it was. Against all odds, against everything she'd feared, her family was going to be whole again. The next afternoon, Emma was in the kitchen making Lily's favorite cookies when she heard a truck pull into the driveway. Lily heard it too. She looked up from her coloring book, her eyes going wide. "Is that—" The front door opened. "Lily? Em?" Emma had never heard anything more beautiful than David's voice calling from the hallway. Lily screamed with joy and ran toward him. Emma followed, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. David was standing in the doorway, looking thin and exhausted and beautiful. His arm was in a sling from injuries in the crash, and there was a bruise on his cheek, but he was alive. He was home. Lily crashed into him, and he scooped her up with his good arm, burying his face in her hair. "My girl," he choked out. "My sweet girl, I missed you so much." "I missed you too, Daddy. Don't ever leave again." "Never. I promise." Emma walked over slowly, almost afraid this was a dream. But when David's eyes met hers, when he reached out his hand and pulled her close, when she felt his warmth and smelled his familiar scent, she knew it was real. They stood there in the hallway, the three of them holding each other, and Emma finally let herself believe it. They were safe. They were together. They were home. And that was all that mattered.